Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're doing a top 10 manhwa with over 100 chapters. This is not the first in the series. If you haven't checked out the other videos in this, see the link above, but let's jump right into the video. Starting off at number 10, we have Dark Magician Transmigrate 66,666 years. This manhwa sees a character reincarnated, or I should say reborn, after being sealed away for millennia, or 66,000, you get the point. The visuals of this story are fantastic, and our protagonist is not exactly the nicest guy around. He's kind of brutal in his way of being, and I will say that the story, to me, got a lot better as we got into a little bit later. I had dropped it for a good while after maybe 20 or so chapters, because, I don't know, it just didn't feel that special or that different from everything else out there. But as I've gotten into it and I've gotten to catch up, I will say that the most recent fights, if you like seeing that main character that's just kind of lording over his opponents because he's just more powerful and has these amazing skills that no one sees coming, this is kind of the manhwa for you, and the visuals really do help to make that all so exciting. At number 9 is The Lord's Coins Aren't Decreasing. This one is something different for a change. I will say it still has a lot of those reincarnated vibes that you're typically going to see. Revenge stories, characters trying to get more powerful, but there's a mechanism in this story that just makes it a whole lot more interesting. And that is, there's a whole bartering system of selling and buying, and basically it's a whole market economy through this supernatural system that lets you trade with other dimensions and allows our protagonist in his second life to really step up the game. I'll give you a little synopsis of how the story starts, though. Character went through hell. He made all the wrong decisions. He basically got tricked by everyone at every turn, and it was a frustrating turn of events for him. But that being said, in his reincarnated life, he kind of gets to get even with all those people that used him in the past life. And I will say, as always, those moments are super satisfying. The visuals of this one are really good and continues to be a strong story. I will say, if you're not into the system that this story kind of puts forward of that market economy thing, it may seem a little boring to you. I really like it because it feels different. Give me your thoughts down below on what you're thinking of this manhwa as you're watching it. At number 8 is Trash of the Count's Family. So Trash of the Count's Family is a manhwa that could easily have got into like the realm of more the romance type stories, because the setup and the visuals really do lend themselves to those types of stories, like the villainous stories or the female led love stories that you see a lot in manhwa. But it's really not that kind of story at all. It's a protagonist that's ends up in a world where he's inhabiting a character of a story that he already knows is how it's going to end. He's a secondary character, to say the least, and he knows this character is going to have a terrible ending. This is actually the plot of a ton of those romance stories. But his whole mechanism on how he's going about surviving, but also escalating what his role is in this world, is really interesting. And there's an empire / world building element to this as he builds alliances with other countries and other groups and individuals, people that he brings to his side, a dragon and different things like that just make the story really interesting and somewhat different, because the character is always, in kind of the same way as Eminence in Shadow does it, doesn't want to look like a main character so he can avoid some of the risks that he's going to be facing. With the difference of Shadow, he's not going to try and put himself on the forefront so everyone sees him. He's really trying to keep that background character kind of vibe going. But everyone kind of gets to know that he is the one that's bringing things together, and it's done in a brilliant way, and a manhwa you should be checking out. Return of the Unrivaled Spear Knight is a manhwa that I personally really enjoy. I will say I had gotten a little tired of it after a little while because of something that happens. There's a time jump that occurs basically pretty far into the manhwa, and they kind of skip some stuff that I wish we had seen, and it makes us a little disconnected afterwards. I've gotten back into it, and I will say the manhwa is fantastic. It's a revenge story that follows a protagonist that he gave his life for king and country, only to be betrayed by those same individuals. And in his second life, he chooses, no, I'm going to back different people. I'm going to be a leader instead of a follower, and it really changes the dynamic. Great fights, awesome character, and a really cool story. Second Life Ranker is probably the most generic on this story, and I know a lot of people like this manhwa. I'm a little iffy on it generally myself. However, I will still say it has a great system and some great characters in it. The art style doesn't always work for me, but it's a great story about a brother trying to get revenge for his twin brother. And it's an enjoyable adventure seeing a character do everything he can for family. And it's not quite the story that you normally see in that specific regard. Tons of fantasy elements of this, a lot of tower climbing elements as well, but a great manhwa to check out. The S-Classes I raised is definitely a little different. Our protagonist, in some ways, is kind of comparable to the protagonist from Seed. He's a character that's a little bit more reserved, a little bit more in the background, but ends up having this really strong skill that allows him basically to recruit S ranks in his world. And it's a cool dynamic because his brother is this really powerful character. He's doing what he can to kind of find a place for his relationship with him. So there is that family/brotherly relationship that's there that's really good. And I will say the fights in some cases are fantastic, though I will say this one's not for everyone because of the vibe of the main character. At 4, you have the player who can't level up, and I know this one goes underappreciated by a lot of people. It is a phenomenal manhwa with a great story, and honestly, compared to other Gate manhwa, it's a lot stronger from a storyline perspective and from a character building perspective. The ecosystem, the swords and stuff like that kind of take the place of leveling up are really good, and they give extra, character to the protagonist and his weapons and things like that. So it's a great manhwa to check out. I will say, I wish it had a better artist. I've said this for a long time. It's not the best out there, but I still think you can look past it. It's a phenomenal read. At number 3 is Murim Login. I didn't put this on my original list, and I must say Murim Login is a phenomenal manhwa that follows a character that kind of discovers another world through a VR game, but it's so much more than that. And the character interactions are hilarious, the fights are fantastic, the game systems are really good, and when it comes to Murim manhwa, this is one of the best one out there without a single doubt. It's loved by a lot of people. It's in the top 2, top 3 of a lot of people you're going to talk to that follow this channel and enjoy this type of manhwa, so do check it out. If you're still here at this point, please take a moment to like, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell for more content. Hey, and check out other videos on this channel. It would be really appreciated. At number 2, we have SSS-Class Suicide Hunter, a manhwa that follows a character that's one of those rags to riches kind of story. You get a special skill that everyone sees as, at least you see as complete trash, but allows you basically to learn the skills of other people. And dying does play a role into that, and that's why the name of the manhwa is like that, or it's also called SSS-Class Revival Hunter, similarly. The manhwa has great storytelling, a really good mentor-mentee relationship with a ghost that basically is teaching him stuff in the... It's played for comedic relief in a lot of cases, but I think it's a phenomenal add to the story, though I did find him annoying at first, but I do find that it actually works really well with the story in general. At number 1, I have a tie. There's 2 manhwa I want to give you here, and the first one is The Skeleton That Failed to Protect the Dungeon, something along those lines. It is a fantastic manhwa. I don't talk about it much on this channel, and there's a reason for it. It's a manhwa with over 200 something chapters. If you haven't dove into it, it's great. You definitely should. It follows a skeleton that failed to protect the dungeon, and he's on a quest after that to kind of find his place in the world once again. And he's a skeleton. This is no exaggeration. There's no face here. And following a skeleton around, honestly, for me, wasn't that interesting. He's a fully fleshed out character, ironically fleshed out. He's a fully fleshed out character in every way. However, it just doesn't always land for everyone, and I finally caught up to it, and I will say the character relationships, the character stories, and everything going on in this make it worthy of being number 1, or tied to it with our other number 1, which is Lookism. Lookism is our number 1. I'll say still a little bit above failing to protect the dungeon. Lookism is by far the best school manhwa there is. It has the best bully beatdowns. It has the best school development of just characters that are becoming better people. It has some of the most real depictions of characters that I've seen. I say Windbreaker is probably still a little bit more for me than this one, but I will say it's done to perfection. And the most recent arcs, the last year basically of this manhwa have been fantastic. fantastic. I will say the first few chapters are hard to get through for a lot of people, and I was turned off for a long time until I forced myself through it, and it was 100% worth the chance to do so. Also, I will say the Netflix adaptation is not that bad, but I will say still read the manhwa. It's worth your time. With that, have a great day, guys. Thanks for watching.